Hi there, it's Melissa Klein, and I just wanted to say how much I've been enjoying working with you guys. Just seeing the breakthroughs and the creativity that's happening, and I find myself every week being really excited by not only what I'm going to do, yes, ego, but also just I'm like, oh, I wonder what they're going to do with this one. Let's see what they're going to do, and having this wonderful dialogue. So I just wanted to start this session with a little bit of a gratitude about that. My subject this time, and I'll send a photograph of this, but I just wanted to put this under here, is this hourglass that I've had for several years now. As many of you know, I have a terrible, terrible, terrible sense of time. And this somehow has oddly helped keep me on track. It does run in time for an hour. I also have a 15-minute timer and a 3-minute timer. And the three of these guys kind of, when I choose to use these tools, actually are pretty effective. But moving forward, I am going to talk a little bit about how I'm going to set up this painting. And one of the things that I touched upon in a recent Zoom session was that when you are doing ellipses, it really requires for you to hold a lot of integrity in terms of symmetry and curves and smoothness and things like that. The good news is that once you kind of learn a few techniques to work with it, it'll make sense. So what I'm going to do is start here with just a really, and this is interesting to me because this is the first I've really worked in a portrait. This is portrait where it's, taller up and down versus landscape, which is the other way fashion. But, this subject really, really required it. And we're going to be talking about transparencies. And I have my my hourglass against a white background with, and I've created a situation with the shadows that, I've actually kind of really pretty carefully manufactured this situation. I'm also working at night. I really thought about it, but I was like, you know what? I think in this case, this needs to be at night. Notice that as I'm sketching, I'm pretty loose about it. And what I'll do is one of my instructors, Bob Engman, who I haven't mentioned before, he talked about how your eye, he was a sculptor actually, and he talked about how your eye will find the right line that as you sketch around it. He did some wonderful abstract sculptures. Maybe I'll include some links about him. I like to honor my former teachers very much because, in some ways it's that whole concept of we stand upon the shoulders of giants. And Bob was certainly very, very important to me in helping me get my start as a young artist. As I'm drawing this, I'll tell you my Bob Engman story. So I was a very punk little high schooler, freshman. In fact, a lot of me literally did identify with the punk movement. And my father had set up for me to try to get into Penn, University of Pennsylvania, an interview with Bob Engman, who was the head of the sculpture department. Which is kind of interesting because I'm really have been traditionally more of a painter. I've done a few sculptures, but I think that's a better description of my work is painting and drawing. But somehow my dad knew Bob because the Morris Arboretum had commissioned Bob to do a sculpture based on Iyengar, the famous yoga master, and so Dad had a connection, I guess you could say. Anyway, I showed up for this interview, and I had no idea who I was talking to. You know, like it's like, oh, it's just some old dude my dad set me up with to talk about to get into pen, whatever, you know. And I didn't truly appreciate it. And he had, you know, in the grand tradition of many artists, uh, forgotten that he had an interview with me. And, little peon teenager. I was literally a teenager. So he shows up finally after the secretary like calls him and is like, God, where are you? You know, kind of thing. And you got to remember, this is like the days before cell phones. And he was like, ugh, you know, and he shows up, he's all kind of in a frenzy. And I'm like, you're late, which is really ironic coming from me because I am often late for things. And very, you know, and he's like, I didn't know about it. So we kind of began it with an argument. But very quickly, you know, I showed him my portfolio and he liked what he saw. And then I liked him too. He was really a wonderful mentor and, you know, kind of became a friend. I think, unfortunately, he's many years gone. But it's very pleasant to share this. So what I've done is I've been talking about this is I've, you know, kind of, you know, to try to sketch this as accurately as possible. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to check for symmetry. You can use a clear ruler, or if you don't happen to have one handy, you know, whatever kind of semi-straight edge that you can choose to find. I'm going to use this, fold a piece of paper, and just kind of be like, all right, how does that look? How does that go from side to side? A clear ruler would be best, but short of that, I'll just draw a straight line down the middle and see what that is. And if you remember from an earlier video, I talked about how to do a straight line by looking at the space. And fairly, like I'm a little fatter on this side than that side. And actually the right side's a little bit more accurate. I know, we're talking about the difference of like maybe millimeters. But when you go to do, if you are interested in doing portrait work and people and making it look like that person, these little differences are huge. So in this case, because this is what I would call more abstract, like isn't going to affect the integrity of it, I'm going to go for making it a little bit more round. And, you know, depending on how OCD you want to get, you know, you can measure left to right and see like, okay, how equal are these things? I personally prefer to kind of freehand things and keep it a little bit loose, keep a little bit of action, and then correct it as I go along. Some people will call that lazy, but they are not here with us in the trenches of doing the art, so, and they don't know what they're talking about, because I'm anything but lazy, actually. I aspire to laziness, but I really fail at it. And then it's really curious to me because I'm noticing that how thick the glass is in the center, and then it, you know, this, one of the things I really love about this piece is that, or about this object, is, you know, you have this sort of the gray sand, the beautiful gray sand, and then which is very opaque inside this very translucent form. And so that's part of why I chose this slightly unusual situation, because a lot of times, you know, I guess you could have like a liquid, for example. I make this green smoothie that just looks like the grossest thing ever, and you know, you have this opaque liquid inside a clear glass, but in this case, here we go. All right, so now that I have my rough sketch established, I'm just going to take my trusty pink eraser and I'm going to really fade it out. And I'm especially going to get after this little guideline kind of thing. And you can drop guidelines all sorts of ways. In fact, another good place to do a guideline or to look at your symmetry would be here. So and let me grab another. See, okay, cool. Cool. You know, this negative space, look at your negative space. Negative space will help you. Negative space is just a general term for whatever is not the thing, okay? So the thing in this case is the hourglass. Negative space is the stuff around the hourglass. And see that there's pretty good symmetry in terms of this sort of triangle-ish type space. That's helping me. And I'm gonna fade this out pretty deeply, I would say. I probably could leave a few pencil marks, and I don't mind actually having a few pencil marks. Another note, by the way, having a feather is kind of a really helpful thing. I believe this is a pheasant feather, and not something I'm not supposed to have, because there are rules around like eagle feathers and stuff, even though they're like all over the place where I live and are constantly after the chickens. So, and I might add, they have yet to kill the white rooster that makes so much noise that I find so annoying. Anywho, I just wanted to talk to you guys about that, and then I'm going to lay in some paint, and I'm going to go into a time lapse. I'm going to do a gradient of this, actually really quick before I get into this. So right now what's happening is how I've set it up, the line of the paper is about here, you know, or sort of this horizon line of the paper, and then it goes on either side. And then on the bottom, the way the light is working now, on the bottom the light is lighter, and on the top it's got a bit of a gradient. And I would encourage you guys, whatever's happening, like, use that as a guide, but it's really fun to go off-road with your backgrounds, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Thank you so much for watching, and I will be seeing you soon on Zoom. So looking forward to it.